Question of the Week from the Naked Scientists.
Hello and welcome to Question of the Week. I'm James Titko. This week, Frank writes in to ask, have there been any studies on the effects of rocket launches on the greenhouse effect or respiratory issues and general carcinogenic properties? And it's an interesting conundrum, Frank. How does funding for space exploration, which might well hold the solution to many of our problems, account for costs which may be inflicted on the environment? Well, to help me shed some light, I've enlisted Xander Byrne from the University of Cambridge's Institute of Astronomy.
Thanks, James. Frank's question raises a few quite interesting points. So, rocket launches do have an impact on the greenhouse effect, but not actually because of the greenhouse gases that they emit. So a lot of rockets use kerosene as their fuel, and that releases CO2 when it's burned. But kerosene is also jet fuel, right? And whereas in a given week there might be like 3 or 4 rocket launches, there will also be something like 800,000 flights. So, in that context, rocket launches aren't really much of a problem. The difference is that in a rocket launch, the fuel has to be burned through so quickly that we have what's called incomplete combustion. The fuel doesn't sort of burn all the way, and you just basically end up with a load of soot, particulate carbon, being released out into the upper atmosphere.
You might not know that soot is actually the second biggest contributor to global warming after greenhouse gases. So although some rocket companies will say that the emissions of their rocket launches are much lower than commercial flights, the amount of soot they produce is really starting to have an effect, especially since it's partly being released way up in the stratosphere where it tends to stick around for a long time, interfering with the ozone layer and so on. And the problems don't stop there.
There's another fuel which is quite often used in rocket launches called unsymmetrical dimethylhydrazine, or UDMH. And this is really, really horrible stuff. It's incredibly carcinogenic and really, really bad for you. But it doesn't actually need an ignition system to set it off. So it's really easy to build a rocket which uses UDMH as a fuel. But just like kerosene, it usually doesn't burn completely. So when the first stages of a rocket are finished and fall back to Earth, they contain quite a lot of unburned UDMH, which just gets spilled out into soil and rivers and the general environment.
In Kazakhstan, where a lot of Russian rockets launch from, they found very high rates of cancer in towns hundreds of miles away from the launch sites. So rockets which use this fuel are really bad for the people living even remotely nearby. But space exploration continues nevertheless. The potential upside is huge after all. Humanity's innate urge to push the boundaries, to go where we haven't before, has served us fairly well to this point.
That's something that a lot of astronauts remark about when they see the Earth from space for the first time, is just how fragile our planet is. And perspectives like this are really valuable to motivate us to want to protect our planet and to see it for the beautiful place that it is.
Thanks for sending that one in, Frank. If you'd like to have us try and answer one of your questions, please send it to chris@nakedscientists.com.
Question of the Week is part of the Naked Scientists podcast and supported by the Wellcome Trust and UK Fast. Look us up online at nakedscientists.com.